All right, Yankees fans, let's dive into this because there's a lot of buzz going around right now, and it's got everyone in the Bronx talking. Pete Alonso to the Yankees. Yeah, that's the rumor that just won't die. And on paper, it sounds like fireworks, right? You drop Pete right in the middle of a lineup between Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, and suddenly that order looks like something out of a home run derby. You'd have three power bats capable of changing a game with one swing. That's the dream scenario, but when you start peeling back the layers, it's not as simple as it sounds. Let's start with the numbers, because Pete's season was a bit of a roller coaster. He hit .272 with 38 homers, 126 runs batted in, a .347 on-base percentage, and an .871 OPS. That's solid. But there was that brutal month of July where he completely fell off the map. He hit around 140 and had an OPS somewhere in the 500s. It was bad. No way around it. Still, credit where it's due, because he bounced back. August and September were a different story, both months with OPS numbers over 900, hitting 9 homers in August and 7 in September. That's the Pete Alonso everyone knows. When he's locked in, he's one of the toughest outs in the league. Now, let's talk about what kind of deal Pete is supposedly looking for. Reports say he wants something in the range of 7 years. 7 years. And if you take into account what he made with the Mets on that 1-year, $30 million deal, that's the benchmark he and his agent are using. But let's be real, it's hard to imagine a team giving him that same annual average value on a long-term contract. Maybe you shave it down to $27 million per year. Even then, that's a massive commitment. We're talking close to $200 million for a player who, let's face it, is not a great defensive first baseman. Last year, the numbers at first base weren't pretty. -9 defensive runs saved, -9 outs above average, -8 fielding run value. That's not what you want from the guy anchoring your infield. And that's where the problem starts for the Yankees. You'd basically be paying a fortune for a designated hitter in the making. Because realistically, you'd have to move Pete to DH sooner rather than later. But the Yankees already have that spot reserved for Judge in the future. Sure, Aaron Judge can still play the outfield, and play it well, but the organization knows they've got to preserve his body. You want his bat in the lineup for the long haul, not see him land on the injured list because he's diving in the outfield in his mid-30s. Once Giancarlo Stanton's contract runs out, and that's in about 2 seasons, Judge will probably slide into that full-time DH role. It just makes sense. So if you bring in Pete Alonso now, what happens in 2 years when Judge needs that spot? You're stuck with 2 DHs and nowhere to play one of them. That's the kind of roster logjam that kills flexibility. And look, I'm not saying Pete isn't an elite hitter. When he's hot, he's one of the best in the game. But there's no middle ground with him. He's either smashing the ball to the moon or going ice cold for weeks. That's not the consistency the Yankees have been craving. Personally, if I were running the front office, I'd consider a shorter deal, maybe 4 years, around $115 to $125 million. That still gives Pete a big payday without locking the team into a contract that could age badly. But reports say he's set on a 7-year deal, and that's where things get tricky. Because if you sign Pete, what does that mean for guys like Ben Rice? Rice has shown flashes of promise, especially against right-handed pitching, but he's struggled against lefties. Adding another right-handed power bat, like Alonso, doesn't really balance that out. It just adds more of what the Yankees already have, big righty sluggers who feast on lefties but can be pitched around in October. And if Rice and Austin Wells are both still part of the roster by opening day, adding Pete to that mix creates overlap. You'd have 3 guys who all project as first base or DH types. That's not a balanced roster. And let's not ignore the age factor. Pete's going to be 31 by opening day. If he gets that 7-year contract, that means you're paying him through his age 38 season. Are the Yankees really going to commit that kind of money and that much time to someone who's probably not even playing his natural position by the end of the deal? It's risky. You're paying for the first 3 or 4 years of high-level production and then hoping the decline doesn't come too soon. Now, if we're talking about spending that kind of cash, wouldn't it make more sense to go after someone like Cody Bellinger? Bellinger brings versatility. He can play the corners, handle first base if needed, and gives you solid defense in left or right field. Center field? That's a different story. The numbers there don't lie. He's average at best these days, with negative defensive run save metrics and just about league average range. But on the corners, he's excellent. In over 400 innings in right field last year, he had 8 defensive runs saved and 2 outs above average. That's legit. You can trust him out there. So, if you're going to invest 6 or 7 years in someone, why not in a guy who gives you defensive flexibility and still hits at a high level? You can move Bellinger around as needed. When Stanton's contract is up, you shift Judge to DH full-time, and Bellinger slides into right field where he's elite. That kind of move keeps your lineup powerful and your defense strong. Don't get me wrong, I love Pete's bat. The guy's a monster when he's on, but fit matters. And right now, with where the Yankees roster is, it just doesn't feel like a perfect fit. If they want to spin big, maybe look at someone like Kyle Tucker. He's younger, around 28 or 29, and a better all-around hitter than Bellinger. He costs more, no doubt about that. But if you're already talking about massive long-term deals, why not go all in on a player entering his prime instead of one leaving it? Still, I get it. Yankee fans love the idea of a big splash. The thought of Judge, Stanton, and Alonso hitting back-to-back-to-back makes any fan's heart race. That's a lot of thunder in the lineup. But as exciting as it sounds, baseball isn't just about collecting big bats. It's about balance, defense, and planning ahead. The Yankees can't afford to make another move that looks flashy today, but causes problems 2 or 3 years down the line. So, yeah, Pete Alonso is an amazing hitter. His April was red hot. May dipped. July was a disaster, but August and September? That was peak Pete. The guy can flat out rake. I wouldn't be mad to see him in pinstripes. Far from it. But the fit, the money, the long-term impact, those are all big questions that the Yankees front office has to weigh carefully before they even think about making that move. Now, let's stretch this conversation a little further, because it's not just about throwing Pete Alonso into the Yankees lineup and calling it a day. The ripple effects of a move like that would spread across the entire roster. And honestly, that's what people aren't talking enough about. When you build a championship team, every piece has to fit together. The defense, the lineup balance, the payroll structure, the long-term vision. Bringing in a player like Pete isn't just about what he can do right now. It's about what that move means 2, 3, even 5 years from now. For starters, the Yankees have to think about roster identity. For the past few seasons, they've been trying to shift from that all-or-nothing offense, the kind of lineup that either hits 5 homers or gets shut out, to something more complete. You saw flashes of that last season when younger players started contributing, adding more speed and contact to the mix. That's been the goal. Find that perfect balance between power and versatility. If you add Pete Alonso, you're going right back to the heavy power model. You'd have Judge, Stanton, and Pete, 3 massive right-handed hitters with similar profiles. That's a lot of muscle, but it's also a lot of swing and miss potential. And when October comes, pitching staffs adjust. We've seen it over and over again. The Yankees have been eliminated time and time again by teams that exploit that one-dimensional offense. They get exposed by elite pitching that takes advantage of those big righty bats. Adding Pete might make your regular season highlight reels pop, but does it really make you more dangerous in the postseason? That's the real question here. There's also the defensive issue that can't be ignored. Pete's numbers at first base are tough to justify. -9 defensive runs saved isn't a blip, it's a problem. If you bring him in, you're essentially saying you value his bat so much that you're willing to live with that kind of defense. But the Yankees have been hurt by poor defense before. The infield defense has already been shaky, and that's with Anthony Rizzo providing veteran stability when he's healthy. If you replace Rizzo with Alonso, you're losing a glove that's been a big part of saving runs. Those little plays, the digs, the stretches, the instinctive reactions, they matter more than people think. Another thing that keeps popping up in fan discussions is the future of Ben Rice. You can't overlook what that means for his development. The kid deserves a real shot to prove himself. If Pete comes in, Rice gets pushed aside or buried on the bench. And when you have young, controllable talent, you don't want to block their path with expensive veterans unless it's absolutely necessary. The Yankees have to stop repeating that cycle where they overspend for short-term gain and stall their prospects' growth. It's happened too often, and the roster ends up clogged with players who can't move positions or fit into the long-term picture. And then there's Aaron Judge's timeline. The Yankees know that as he ages, they'll need to manage his workload more carefully. That's why the designated hitter role is so important to preserve. Once Giancarlo Stanton's contract is off the books, that DH spot will open up, and you can almost guarantee the Yankees will use it to keep Judge's bat in the lineup while limiting his risk of injury. If you commit to Alonso on a long deal, that flexibility disappears. Because what are you going to do? Put Pete at DH full-time and force Judge to keep playing the field deep into his 30s. That's a recipe for disaster. You have to think 2 or 3 moves ahead, not just the next season. Now, some people have suggested that maybe the Yankees could offset that by signing both Pete and another star like Cody Bellinger. And sure, that sounds incredible in theory. A lineup with Judge, Alonso, and Bellinger? That's every fan's dream. But this isn't a video game. The financial side of that would be massive. The Yankees haven't been shy about spending money in the past, but they've also become more cautious in recent years. They're already paying huge salaries to Judge, Cole, and Stanton, and the next generation of players will eventually need contracts too. Adding another 7-year deal in the range of $200 million could tie their hands when it comes to future moves. Cody, at least, brings more defensive value. He's athletic, can handle both corner outfield spots, and has some experience at first base. The numbers show that he's still a strong defender in right field. 8 defensive runs saved last year, 2 outs above average, and that kind of skill set gives you options. You can move him around depending on injuries or matchups. With Pete, you're locked into one position, and even then, it's not a position he plays particularly well. That's not ideal for a team that's trying to keep its roster flexible. The comparison between Cody and Pete really comes down to what the Yankees value more, raw power or versatility. Pete's power numbers are elite. There's no denying that. When he's on, he can carry an offense for weeks. But Bellinger gives you speed, defense, and a left-handed bat, something the Yankees badly need. The lineup is too right-handed as it is. Adding another righty slugger just amplifies that imbalance. And if you're going to spend that kind of money, maybe it's better to target someone like Kyle Tucker. Tucker's younger, more consistent, and gives you both power and contact. He's not as flashy as Pete, but he's the kind of hitter who performs in October, and that's what matters most. But before we continue, please remember to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the latest news about the New York Yankees. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments. The Bronx is buzzing with whispers louder than the crack of a Judge home run. According to multiple clubhouse murmurs and a few eagle-eyed insiders, EMMANUEL CLASE, the fireballing closer who's been the heartbeat of the Cleveland bullpen, has reportedly cut ties with the Guardians and is on his way to becoming the newest weapon in the New York Yankees arsenal. While neither organization has made an official announcement, the chatter has taken on a life of its own, igniting excitement and disbelief across both fan bases. CLASE, known for his jaw-dropping 100-mile-per-hour cutters and ice-cold demeanor on the mound, has been one of baseball's most dominant late-inning forces over the past few seasons. His potential move to the Yankees, a team that has long struggled to find consistency at the back end of the bullpen since the golden days of Mariano Rivera and Aroldis Chapman, feels almost too perfect. In Cleveland, he was revered. In New York, he could become a legend. Sources close to the situation suggest that the relationship between CLASE and Cleveland's front office had grown tense over the summer. Rumblings of frustration about contract incentives and a desire for a bigger stage may have played a part in the sudden rupture. If true, the Yankees may have seized on a golden opportunity, swooping in with the kind of offer that even the Guardians couldn't refuse. Inside Yankee Stadium, whispers are that CLASE could immediately step into the closer role, reshaping a bullpen that has seen its share of uncertainty. Imagine the roar of the crowd as CLASE storms out of the bullpen gate, lights flashing, music blaring, a new closer ready to shut the door on the American League. If the deal becomes official, the balance of power in the AL East could shift dramatically. Cleveland would lose its most electric arm, while the Yankees would add another piece to their star-studded machine. For now, it's still rumor. But in the world of baseball gossip, This one feels like it's gathering too much steam to be ignored. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the New York Yankees, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.